back into it with more depressing movies. It feels like Oscar season all over again.
Well, that was a movie.
Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today I'm going to be giving my first thoughts on A Good Person, which was written and directed by Zach Braff and starring Florence Pugh and Morgan Freeman. In case you don't know what this movie is about, you haven't seen anything, Florence Pugh plays a young woman who is in a terrible car accident, and because of that has to go through rehab and be on pretty intense painkillers, which gets her addicted, and then this is about her struggle with that, as well as the other characters affected by that accident. So right now, last I checked anyway, it's got like a 49% on Metacritic and like a 7.3 from IMDb users, and they're both right. This movie is compelling emotionally with extremely strong performances from Florence Pugh and Morgan Freeman especially. They were both dynamic and great. It's a very compelling storyline with characters that you genuinely care about and are invested in, told with peak mediocrity, and it's kind of frustrating, honestly. The directing is neither here nor there. I wouldn't say that it was bad directing. The writing leaves a lot to be desired. The editing is sloppy and confusing at times. It's melodramatic in a lot of ways, but also teeters on Oscar-worthy drama. It is both, and that's what's frustrating about it, is like sometimes you're watching it going like, this could be an Oscar performance maybe for one of these actors, and then other times you're like, this is daytime TV, what is going on? It's just kind of a little bit all over the place, which is frustrating because it could have been so much more. Like I was saying, the pacing is frustrating, where it's like you see just montage after montage, some good, some bad, and it's like, why don't you actually show us what's happening? I felt like so much of this movie was say, don't show. Like, there's just so many conversations about how people feel and what people did, and so little is actually just shown. And sometimes it's done well, honestly well. Like, there's sometimes we're led to believe certain things about characters, and then it's revealed through a conversation later that no, that's not actually what happened or how this person is or whatever. And some of it's genuinely good, but there's a lot of it that is just so forced. Like, the exposition can be really forced at times. Like, there's this whole dynamic with Florence Pugh and her mother, where apparently when she was a child at some point, her father up and left and started a new family in a different state. And that's said firstly in a conversation between her and her mother, where her mother goes like, well, you know what your father did? He up and left. He put everything in a car and he drove away. And it's like, that is not how human beings communicate. That is not how humans talk to one another. That is not a sentence people would say. If both people involved in the conversation knew what had happened, it would be simply left at that first line of like, well, you know what Dad did, you know, and then maybe build on top of that, but not further explain it because it doesn't need to be explained. You both know. And then that same topic is brought up again later when Florence Pugh is talking to a third-party character who knows nothing about the story and is asking, so what happened with your dad? And then she tells her. So not only did you repeat yourself and tell us the same thing twice, the first time is so out of character and out of the realm of real world ness. It's just not how people communicate or work or talk or anything. That is just like, that's what's frustrating about this movie. And so much is just left without being developed. Like, Morgan Freeman's character is phenomenally acted, and so is Florence Pugh. They both take these poorly written characters and really stretch them, really develop them as much as they can, just simply on their acting alone. But there's so much more left about Morgan Freeman that you wish had been tapped into. Like, he's got this whole thing where he's got this model train town in his basement, and Florence Pugh asks him why, and he's like, well, because in a model train town, you can be in charge of everything. In the real world, you can't control it, but you can control this model train. And yeah, I get that, like, it's because a lot of bad things have happened in his life, and that's why he wants to have control, because bad things don't have to happen in his model train world, but it's like, there could have been more there. And maybe I wouldn't have minded there not being more there specifically if there was more in general in the movie. Like, it didn't have to be that. I'm just picking that because it's such an interesting thing. Like, I mean, it's a topic that was just talked about just as recently as a Steven Spielberg movie, where, once again, he was obsessed with model trains, and that was the same fascination that led him to filmmaking, because, once again, in filmmaking, if you're the director, if you're the writer, you get to control what happens. Everything happens how you want it to go. And so when you have an anxiety disorder, or if you've had trauma, then something like that can be very comforting, because then you can control everything and you don't have to feel like the world is out of control. So that just is a very interesting topic, and it's like, I want to know more. I want to know more about these people. And yeah, like I said, you do find out a decent amount, but it's all like through dialogue, you know? It's all through like, well, when I was a child and when this, and it's just, I guess with these kind of stories, a lot of it has to be, and I don't necessarily hate when you do that, but you have to do it well. And like I was saying, the dialogue is not well written. It's just not. There's moments where it's okay, like, there's a conversation between Morgan Freeman and Florence Pugh where he's showing her the model train town. She goes like, who's this kid kissing at the school? And he goes, well, that was me as a child. You know, that was my first kiss. And she goes, oh, who's this soldier at the train station? And he goes, that's me too. That's my father picking me up when I got back from Vietnam. You find out a little bit later that it's like, well, he never picked me up, actually. He was, you know, face first in the ground in the backyard because he's an alcoholic. And so it's like, that stuff, that is a beautiful way to show and reveal who characters are and their backstories through exposition with dialogue. But it has to be good like that, and most of it isn't. So yeah, this movie, I'll be damned, I still enjoyed it. Really just because Morgan Freeman and Florence Pugh are that amazing. Molly Shannon also plays Florence Pugh's mom, and she was really good. But most of the actors in the movie are not like A-list actors like that, and you needed A-list performances from these actors. Like Morgan Freeman and Florence Pugh are two of my favorite actors, and both delivered some of their best work in their entire careers in this movie. And I understand why. The story on paper is very compelling, but it just lacked the oomph, the power that it really needed because of how it was written. Yeah, I mean, I'd give this movie a 6, I think, at the end of the day. There was still a lot of good in it. I really enjoyed Florence Pugh's delivery of just absolute depression and addiction. And I will say, though, she only acted like an addict sometimes. She's supposed to be addicted to OxyContin, and she's only kind of acting like an addict when it's important to the story. And I don't think that's her fault. I think that's, you know, the directing, because she was so good when she was called upon to be. And so I have to believe that the directing just let her down, where it's like sometimes she's just completely normal, and then other times she's a drug addict, and you're like, well, which is she? It's a decent to pretty good concept with really good actors, just so imperfect from a technical standpoint. So I'm not wholeheartedly recommending it, but I do think there is some worthy aspects of the movie that are worth checking out. So if it seems like something that you would enjoy, I definitely do think you will. It might not be a theater movie. I know they're only doing like a very small release anyway. Like, it's not an AMC. I had to go to a Regal to see it. And, you know, it was in their smallest theater, and there was me and a couple making out in the back. And that was it. It's a weird choice of a movie for a couple making out in the back. I think it was just like, the girl is like, I like Florence Pugh. And the guy's like, I like making out at movies. Let's do it. I don't know. I'm just guessing at this point. But yeah, that's what I did think. Oh, wait, no. One more thing I need to talk about. There was a hilarious scene, and it's a bit of a spoiler, but it doesn't really matter. Morgan Freeman is the grandfather of this one character, this girl who's 16 years old, and he catches a 20-year-old guy trying to sleep with her. And so he throws him out of the house. And he's like, oh, I need my clothes. And he's like, no, this is my house. These are my clothes now. Just leave. So he's forced outside. And Morgan Freeman opens the window and starts yelling out the window, look, this guy's a pervert. He's a statutory rapist. And so the whole neighborhood like turns and looks. And this old lady is watering her garden and he goes, you're a fuckboy. That's what the children call them these days, right? Fuckboy. Fuck boy! Oh, that may have been the best scene in the whole movie. I love that moment. Anyway, if you've seen it, let me know what you guys thought of it. If not, feel free to check it out and come back and let me know then. Regardless, please remember to like, share. If you're new here, subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye. Bye.